Did you ever think that if you had a better, more expensive piece of gear, you'd not only have more fun, but also be faster on the track? It's a feeling that most sim racers have, especially when you're battling against the clock or struggling to control the car on the track. The feeling of better hardware is undeniable. After all, we've all been tempted by those shiny new wheels and pedals that promise to transform our racing experience. Does spending more on your sim racing setup actually make you faster? Today, we will compare the Logitech G29 to the Fanatec Club Sport DD Plus setup that I have. Back in 2019, I was in a similar position. My first sim rig was centered around the Logitech G29. I remember feeling pretty confident with that setup, thinking I was actually getting the full sim racing experience. But looking back, I realized that just how limited I was by the hardware. The force feedback was weak, the pedals felt more like toys rather than anything else, and the overall experience was, well, kinda bad. Fast forward to today, and things have definitely changed. I've upgraded to this Fanatec Club Sport DD Plus setup, and it's like stepping into a completely new world. Let's talk about the Fanatec setup. This is a complete transformation from the Logitech G29. The thing is, well, it's basically a game changer. Base alone is just about 13 kilos or just about 25 pounds. It's not exactly the kind of gear that you can easily move around. To clarify, my full setup is made out of Club Sport DD Plus, the Formula V 2.5 wheel and the V3 pedals. In total, we are discussing 250 euros versus this 2000 euro setup. The plan is straightforward. We'll compare both the Logitech G29 and the Fanatec on the same track under the same conditions. For this test, we're heading to Watkins Glen short course in Gran Turismo 7, driving the Alpha 4C, a car that is well balanced and challenging quite enough to highlight the strengths and weaknesses of each setup. I'll be doing 10 laps with the Logitech G29 first, followed by 10 laps with the Fanatec DD. The goal is to set the fastest lap time with each setup, but we are also going to be looking at consistency of those lap times, how the wheel handle under different driving conditions, and what is the overall feel of each setup. So does it inspire confidence? Does it help you to stay in control? Does it make the driving experience more enjoyable? So let's start with the Logitech G29 and let's see how it performs. G29 was my first wheel and it's often a go-to option for beginners, and there is actually a good reason why. It's a force feedback wheel that offers a solid entry point into sim racing. You can pick the wheel, pedals and the shifter for a fraction of the cost of more high-end setups. The setup is straightforward, you plug it in, calibrate, and you're pretty much ready to go. The force feedback, while not as strong or detailed as more expensive wheels, still provides a decent level of immersion. You can feel the car's movements, the grip levels, and the bumps in the road, but in a more muted way. However, the limitations of a G29 become apparent when you start pushing the car harder. The force feedback maxes out at 2.2 Newton meters, which is enough to give you a general sense of what the car is doing, but it really does lack the strength and precision of a more high advanced wheels. The force feedback can feel notchy and kind of mechanical, especially when you're trying to make fine adjustments in the middle of the corner. It's also a bit noisy with the gears inside the wheel. Braking with the G29 is another area where it just falls short compared to the more advanced setups. The pedals are based on travel rather than pressure, which means the brake pedal's resistance does not change based on how hard you press it. This makes it difficult to be consistent, especially if you're trying to trail brake or modulate the brakes when you approach the corner. But despite these challenges, the G29 is a solid performer, for its price point, of course. It's fun, accessible, and capable of delivering an enjoyable racing experience, especially for those new to sim racing. It's also a great way to learn the basics of car control, racing lines, and braking techniques. However, as you become more experienced and start chasing those last few tenths of a second, the limitations of a G29 become more apparent. So the question is, how does the G29 stack up against a Fanatec setup? Unlike the Logitech G29, where the wheel is connected via gears and belts, The Fanatec DD is directly attached to the motor, and every input you make is translated instantly and accurately into the game. With 15 Newton meters of torque, this wheel delivers around 7 times more power than the G29, allowing you to feel every bump and every slip on the road. It's smoother, more precise, and far more immersive. The first thing you will notice is the weight, 13 kilos. It really isn't something that you can actually put a clamp on and mount it to your desk. You need a sturdy mount like my GT Omega Prime rig. The wheel feels fantastic in your hands with a solid construction that inspires confidence. The V3 pedals are equally immersive. They feature a load cell brake. This means that the brake pedals measure pressure instead of just travel. This gives you a more realistic and consistent braking experience, something that is crucial for hitting those perfect lap times. But beyond the specs and features, what really sets this Fanatec setup apart is the driving experience. The feedback you get from the wheel is so detailed that you can feel the tires biting into the tarmac, the weight shifting as you brake and turn, those kind of subtle slides that indicate you're right on the limit of grip. It's an experience that's not just about the driving fast, it's more about connecting with a car in a way that feels incredibly real. On the surface, the differences aren't as dramatic as you might expect. With slower cars, the lap times between the Logitech G29 and the Fanatec DD are surprisingly close. The G29 holds its own in terms of outright speed, but the real difference lies in consistency and, of course, feel. Over those 10 laps, the Fanatec consistently produced faster lap times, but more importantly, the spread between the fastest and the slowest time were, well, in general, much tighter. This means that while the G29 can deliver a fast lap, it's much harder to do it consistently. With the Fanatec, the stronger force feedback, better pedals, just allow you to push more and just go for more consistent lap times, smoother inputs, and of course more controlled driving experience. This makes it easier to repeat the fast laps over and over again, which is of course crucial in a very competitive racing environment. The lap times in this video were constantly in the top 250 in the world. Although I did not push all the way to the limit, otherwise I would make more mistakes, I tried to maintain consistent and steady pace, just to show you what exactly these two wheels can produce. Ultimately, the most important thing is to understand how to race properly and how to find the limitations of each car and each track. If you'd like to find out more about how to become faster and just a more skillful player, you can use this coupon to get a 15% discount on my online course. So whether you're racing with a budget wheel or a high-end setup, the goal is to have fun, improve your skills, and just to have an immersive experience. So if you're happy with your current setup, don't feel like you need to upgrade just for the sake of it. Or you're just willing to invest in your hobby, the DD is definitely worth considering. So once again guys, thank you very much for watching, and please let me know down in the comments, what do you think? What's your experience with different sim racing setups, and if you're interested in, well, seeing more content like this one. Of course, if you would like that, hit that like button or maybe even subscribe to the channel. So once again, I really hope that you enjoyed, and until the next time, bye.